Hi, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jesse.
Welcome to the Reimagine Success podcast. We're a husband and wife team who want to make a difference and change the way we all view success.
We've had the privilege of interviewing so many amazing, talented, and successful guests. Each one of them experienced success in their own way.
We want to change how society views success by inspiring you to live your best life and celebrate your successes no matter what that looks like, big and small.
Success looks so different for everyone, and we want you to reimagine your success. Welcome to Season 2 of
Reimagine Success.
Welcome back to another edition of Reimagine Success. So excited to be here today. Unfortunately, today I am flying solo. So Melissa had to finish some stuff and she just wasn't able to be with us today, but I am so glad to be here. I hope everybody's been having an unbelievably successful week. For us, it's just been crazy wide open here lately, and just so much is going on that we can't wait to update you about. So make sure that you jump over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/creativeglobal, and get all the updates about what's going on in our life. We do so much bonus content over there, and we'd love for you to subscribe and see what's going on with all of that. And with that, today, we are so excited to have an amazing guest on the show today. Tim Tortora has spent his impressive career in the entertainment industry, garnering extensive financial and producing experience. During his career, Tim has served as an executive in charge of production and finance, a unit production manager, production accountant, and built a distribution business for a globally recognized independent film franchise. He's so dedicated to his craft and career that he spent his summer vacation writing code for and developing software during his time at Disney, and the studio bought it from him on the spot. He's released 2 books, his latest, How to Make It in Hollywood. Tim has worked as a film and television executive at a series of studios, including Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Films, Mandalay, Milk and Honey Pictures, TriStar Pictures, NBC, ABC, CBS, and the Walt Disney Company. We can't list all the projects he's worked on because it would take way too long, but to name a few titles: Tuesday with Morrie, starring Jack Lemmon and Hank Azaria; Amy and Isabel with Elizabeth Shue; The Wedding with Halle Berry; Before Women Had Wings with Ellen Barkin; Jackass the Movie; Project Imagination; Fear the Walking Dead; This Is It; For Right or Wrong; The Perfect Game, aka The Third Miracle; Home Improvement; Ellen; Terminator 2: Judgment Day; The Doors; Total Recall; Bugsy; Basic Instinct; Fisher King; Lord of the Flies; and Boys in the Hood. Tim's experience as an executive merged with his drive for innovation to always improve the production accounting process. This motivated him and his team to launch the F3 system in fall 2017, which is revolutionizing the accounting process as the entertainment industry has known it to date. Wow, Tim, your bio is so unbelievably impressive. Welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you on today.
Well, thanks for having me. And it's just, it may sound impressive, but it's a job. I've been really fortunate, working with some amazing people, and I love it. I wouldn't continue doing it if I didn't.
Well, that's what we're all about. Like, this podcast is 100% about chasing after the things that you love and finding success in a way that completes your soul, not just get you a paycheck. Right. It's really important for us to make sure that we are doing the things that feed us and drive us, because otherwise, what are we living this life for, honestly?
Yeah, it's true. And, I'm at a point in my career, and have been for going on 20 plus years, where I've been in a place where I love what I do. But I've done a lot of soulless, terrible jobs that—
haven't we all?
Yeah, it's part of the game. It's part of being 20 something. I was lucky. I got into an executive seat when I was 30. I was running, I was the head of production film. I was head of physical production for Harpo Films, which is Oprah Winfrey's television long form, like 2-hour movies and feature film unit. I was 30. I was middle of I guess I was halfway through my 30th year. I was lucky. I was very young. A lot of people don't get that till they're 35 or 40. And I've been super fortunate.
Well, that's a great transition for us to just start diving into kind of what you've done, how you got into it. So why don't you tell us a bit about your story, where you came from, what you were doing before you got into all this good stuff, and then like how you transitioned into that.
Well, how I transitioned into it was honestly just saying yes to everything. That was my modus of operandi all the time. I always knew I wanted to work in entertainment. I grew up in Southern California, and my parents had tickets to the theater and tickets to the stage plays. And I remember driving past the studios and saying to my parents, what goes on behind those gates? What is it? And my dad said, that's where they make movies and TV. I was like, I want to do that. And I was 12 or 13 years old. And I went to movies with my parents a lot. We went probably 2 or 3 times a month to whatever was out. And I think I was 11 years old. I saw Apocalypse Now on a screen, on a giant screen. Who takes their 11-year-old? And my sister is 4 years younger than me, which meant she was like, do the math, she's 7, right?
Yeah.
So who takes a 7-year-old to Apocalypse Now? Nonetheless, my parents brought us to movies, sometimes maybe some bad choices, but I got hooked. I was completely hooked. It was magical to me. And I'd stay up late for the Oscars. And I was in undergrad. I was a student. I was a music student at the time. And every music student had to take a recording engineering class. And that led me to being a tape op in a recording studio, basically a PA, an intern, which I finished my degree. I did all the way through college. And then I finished my degree. I got an advertising degree, and I went to go work for a studio, Columbia Pictures, at an ad agency. And that's where I worked on Bugsy, Total Recall, Terminator 2, big features.
Yeah.
And the only reason I wound up in movies and not music was because I had 2 typos in a cover letter. And the executive, the head of marketing at A&M, wrote back in pencil on my cover letter, said, "Tim, although you sound like a bright guy, I could never consider hiring someone who can't write a flawless cover letter." And he sent it back to me.
Wow.
And I fixed the typos. Actually, it was 1 typo and 1 questionable. I used a colon after Dear, what was his name? Dear Rob. And he wanted to see a comma or a semicolon.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
I mean, the other one was genuinely a typo. So I fixed the typos and I sent it out to the studios, and I wound up getting a job.
That's
and then
crazy.
I wound up being a PA on a TV show with 3 days of guaranteed work. I stayed for a year and just worked my way up from there.
Now, just for my personal curiosity, because I am a musician, what kind of music were you studying in college?
I'm sorry, you cut off for a sec. What'd you say?
Oh, I was saying that I am a musician myself. And so for my curiosity, what kind of music were you studying in college?
Mostly jazz. I was a percussionist. I was a drummer.
Oh, nice.
I was into loud, whatever was loud, whatever was punk, whatever was metal, and it was fast. I was into it. I thought I wanted to be a drummer. But as I started to see the players come across when I was in college, they were better than me. They learned faster than me, and they practiced 6 or 8 hours a day. And I didn't want to practice that much. I was like, nah, not for me. And at the same time, I developed this skill working in a recording studio where I was on the other side of the glass in the control room. And I learned a lot from 2 amazing people, Dan Van Patten, actually 3, a guy called Steve Anderson, and then another engineer called Bob Brown. And between the 3 of them, I learned so much about the recording process, and it just fed that part of my technical, curious brain that I was just like, forget being a musician. I went cold turkey. I stopped playing one day, put my sticks down, through my drum kit in the garbage, and that was it. I was like, I'm done. I'm never going to play again. I think I kept a snare and a pair of sticks just to do rudiments, but by the time I was 25, I don't think I ever picked up another. I was out one night with some friends, and I played with some of the dudes from Circle Jerks with a friend of mine one night. Just happened to be at their house, and that was it. I was like, okay, business, less of the creative and more of the business. And as I got further up in the business, I was like, I really want to get back to creative. And that's what brought me back to working in film production.
Yeah. So I want to explore that a little bit, because that's really interesting. Just your mindset behind all of that. So it's really interesting to me as somebody who loves music to think that, there could be some kind of opportunity that would come along that would make me put it aside altogether, which is what you were saying you did. And was that something that you missed ever, or was it you were so passionate about, the things you were doing that it wasn't really that big a deal?
So yes, I did miss it, but what I missed was the making of music, right? I loved making music. I hated playing it. I hated being a player. Put a chart in front of you, play the same fucking tune over and over and over and over. I felt like that monkey with the cymbals. King, 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 king. You know the one? That's what it feels like.
Our joke was in college that any old monkey with no brain could play the drums. Just put a sheet of music in front of him and give him some sticks, and he's got, it is very mindless when it comes to especially classical style drumming and like college level drumming. It's more fun if you're in a band and performing or like creating like music of your own and getting to have that initial writing. But I could see we're doing it over and over and over again, the same songs, the same way. That does get a little old at times.
But even playing in a band, playing the same set, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, it's like
and
enough.
making it seem fresh every time.
And that's
exciting.
a skill. That is a skill. If you're John Bon Jovi, David Lee Roth, whoever, name the rock star, right?
Yep.
Whatever. If you can play the same song every night in the same order, 200 nights a year, that is a skill. And to get people to show up and do it, my hat's off to them. I get bored. I got really bored. So I missed the process of creating music. And as I got further up into the music and into the business and the technical side of the industry, I was getting further and further away from actual creating of something, whether it was movies or TV or music or whatever. That's what got me. That's what forced me to get into production as a PA. That was a really hard decision. I was walking away from what precipitated that change was I was offered a job I was working on the Columbia TriStar business at an agency called McCann Erickson. It's a big conglomerate now. And I was offered a job on the Universal business, making 3 times what I was making before. I was making terrible money at the time. I mean, literally I was living with 3 dudes in a 2-bedroom on the West Side. That's how inexpensive my life was. And I was about to get this next job, and I was going to get the title. I was offered the title and I'd only been doing it for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, something like that. And I was offered the title of a media supervisor, a job most people in New York and LA spent 10 years toiling away in strategy before they got that title. And I was like, if I take this job, I'm going to get further away. I'm going to hate my life in 20 years. And I bailed. I took a $400 a week job on a TV show called Dream On from, that honestly, a dear friend of mine helped me get set up in that show. And I took 3 days worth of guaranteed work and I stayed for a year. And that's the part I missed, was being in the trenches of actually making something. And that I still do miss to some extent.
Man, I'm just going to talk over what you just said, because I love it so much. The fact that you gave up a really good paying job because it wasn't going to fulfill you, and you took something that was less money, less guarantee, because it was what you wanted. And that's exactly the thing that we talk about here all the time is success. Most people would be like, well, you're not paving the way for success because you're not taking the higher paying job, but you opened up a door for yourself that led to all these amazing things that you would have missed out on had you got into that corporate job and let your soul die along with it. And you would have just put your head down and, ground out the work. And who knows if you would have ever got back into a more creative field.
Yeah. And that decision process I was young. I was 25. It was emotional. It took 6 months or a year. I'm sure I was fucking intolerable to be around during that time with my friends.
Right.
And honestly, in retrospect, they have said so much. They have been completely candid about that. So it wasn't like I just flipped a switch and went, oh, I'm going to go do that. It transpired over about 9 months. And it took me, maybe even a little bit longer. It took me a while to get to that place where I gotta do what really feeds my soul and what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about. And that's been since I made that choice when I was 25 and I successfully crossed the divide. I've done it over and over and over and over again. And that's a skill you develop and you learn by failing, and you learn by making mistakes, and you learn by trying. Just not trying and just, not being out there, meeting people. This is a social business. Entertainment is extremely social. And if you don't know the guy or girl in the senior position who can put you in the chair of musician, author, director, writer, producer, actor, whatever, if you don't know that person, you're never going to get hired. It's that simple. You have to network and you have to be social and stay connected. I don't really want to do that. I didn't want to do it in my 20s. I don't want to do it in my 50s, but I still do it. And I had to do it then. I forced myself to be out meeting people when it was uncomfortable to walk up to someone and say, hi, I'm Tim Tortora. What's your name? And just strike up a conversation. That's really hard and it sucks, but it's part of the job.
I completely understand that sentiment. My wife is great at this. If anybody who knows Melissa has ever seen her out and about in public, she will walk up to anybody and she's never met a stranger. She'll just start talking right away, strike up conversations, networks like a champ. Me, we go to these parties or events or, whatever, where we're trying to network and stuff. And she's out there meeting new people. And I'm just kind of looking around like, all right, how am I going to break into this conversation? What's something witty that I could possibly say that would get me in, or it's nerve wracking for me because I'm an introverted extrovert. So
same with me. Same thing.
Once I open up, I'm good. I'll have a conversation with you all day long, but that initial getting into your space, I close down and I have a really hard time doing that. So I understand that sentiment because I am with you on that.
Well, I'll tell you something I learned from watching actors and something a journalist once said to me many years ago about that exact thing, about networking and meeting people. Don't fish for the witty thing. Just introduce yourself and ask them a question about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. And if they don't, they at least have something they can reference and you can strike up a conversation. And then that leads to the next thing. And that's partly what I teach in my current book, which is informational interviews is the gateway to building a network in Hollywood. You got to do them. And the way you do that is you figure out who to get connected to by researching the shows you want to work on and who works on them and who actually is in the trenches making them. And then you connect with them wherever you can, on the phone, cold calling, DMing, cold DMing, whatever, LinkedIn, Facebook. Try to stay away from the personal if you can. And then you want to try to get an informational interview, whether it's on the phone or in person, for 20 minutes. And at that interview, you're just going to ask them, how did you get to the job you're at? I'd love to do the job you're doing. What's your path? And then you shut up and you listen. Yeah,
that's such great advice. And I hope our listeners are listening to that because so many people will go on LinkedIn, like you're saying, and then immediately start cold calling with some product they're trying to push, or they're trying to get you to, buy into something, and they don't spend any time developing a relationship at all. And I love your approach of like really getting to know the person and hearing their story, because people do love to share their stories.
They do.
That's the whole reason we have this podcast, because we're trying to get people to share their stories and encourage other people and help other people to grow and learn. And so when you approach somebody with that mindset of, I want to know about you because I look up to what you've done and I want to see myself get to that point, versus, hey, how can you help me? Or how can you buy into my thing? Like it's such a different mindset going into it.
Well, to that end, when you DM someone, I always say, I have a 3-sentence structure that I say to people, which is, hi, I'm Tim, I'm A, and be honest. If you're a student, say you're a student. You don't need to talk about all the great stuff you made as a student, film student, or working, or be embarrassed about being a bartender or whatever. Tell them, I am a student. I'm currently, my goal job is to be a director, actor, writer, producer, crew, whatever it is. Insert that. I'm currently looking for a position as a PA or some kind of an assistant job, because those are the jobs you're going to get entry level. Once you get in, then you can network. And you have to focus it to the right person, right? I'm out there on the net everywhere. I get DMs and emails all the time from people. Will you read my script? No, I'm not. I don't have 2 fucking hours of my life. I got an 11-year-old little girl. I want to spend time with her, not read your draft. Will you raise money for me? No. If I'm going to raise money, I'm going to raise money for projects that my clients are paying me to raise money for, right? Yeah. I'm getting paid to do something, and I don't work on the IFCOM. So, and neither should anybody in the industry, by the way. I don't think anybody should ever do that, but at least once you establish a career, but that's for another time.
And by that, you mean if this makes money, then you will get paid.
Correct.
Yeah.
In the entertainment business, we get paid. Plain and simple. You may dip into free work. You may dip into student work because you want to build a network and you want to expand your knowledge in a particular area. But if you're going to go work in that area where you're not being paid, it's amateur league. Those people don't have money. They don't have access. They don't have distribution, and it's going to do nothing for your career. But that doesn't mean we don't do it. You do it a couple of times, do it for a couple of days when you have time off. It's not interrupting your primary source of making a living, because you got to make a living unless you have a trust fund or your parents are paying for you. You got to make a living. So I always tell people, don't work on the IFCOM. And if someone says to you, I need $500 to get you into the festival, get you into the circuit. I need 500 or $1,000. And I see some for $5,000 where people will spend $5,000 for a distributor to take their movie out into the markets.
Mm-hmm.
In the business of entertainment, we collect money. We do not pay money. We collect from distributors and exhibitors. We never pay people for this job. So if someone says to you, if you pay me $500, I'll get you a casting session. If you pay me $500, I'll get your movie into a festival, or I'll get it into a market so we can make a sale. That's bullshit. It's a scam. Don't pay it.
Yeah, that's great. Is that what you mean when you talk about the Hollywood con man?
That's the Hollywood con man.
Yeah. So how did you first start getting introduced to the Hollywood con man? What was your first con, and did you fall for it?
I actually worked in the industry for over 20 years before I ever got ripped off, believe it or not. I got really lucky, and I got ripped off because a group of producers I was working for as a line producer said they had $14 million to make a movie, and they didn't. They only had 7, and they shut down physical production halfway through, and we got stuck in Mexico. But I wrote a book about that. Oh my goodness. That's another story. Nonetheless, yes, it's the Hollywood con man. And I think the simple guiding principle that I go with every single time is, if someone's real, they're going to pay you, and they're going to pay you real money. Now, you may do an internship, you might do free work as an apprentice on something, but don't do it for very long. Do it, like I said, for a couple of days, a couple of projects to get credits on your resume and spread your name around. Don't go work for one person, one guy, one girl for a year or 2 years or 5 seasons on a show. When you're young and early in your career, you have to expand your spider web. You have to expand your network like a spider web. And if you are working for one person and that person takes a vacation, stops working in the industry, retires, or they get kicked out because they made some lewd comment to some woman on a set, young girl who's angry, or some dude who's angry, your career is over because that person above you was an idiot. So you got to spread yourself around. Or maybe they just are innocent and they're just don't want to do it anymore. They grew out of the industry. This is a business for young people. You get to be 40, and if you're still working in production, you're looking around going, God, I never see my family. When am I going to see my family? Maybe I don't have a family. Maybe I'm never going to do this. Right. So you kind of have to be cognizant of that. Spread your name around, work around a lot, but don't take a lot of free internships, 1 or 2 at the most. And when it's time to level up to the next job, maybe you take an internship or a free job because you want to meet someone who you want to work with. But only do it for a few days. Don't do it for a long time. That's great. That's great. Now you've got so many credits, and you've worked in so many departments doing different things. What's been your favorite department to work in and really kind of spread your wings a little bit? Well, it's always been finance. That's the thing that I really cut my teeth and made my reputation, was in finance, physical logistics as a line producer. So I came up in finance. I started budgeting. I started scheduling. The next thing I knew, I was UPMing, and then I was line producing, and then I was a production executive, managing multiple shows simultaneously with UPMs and producers and all the rest sitting under. Well, it's under my boss, but I sat dotted line to my boss, and I consulted her on what was going on and what were bad decisions and what were good decisions, right? So for me, it's always been finance and physical logistics. That's what I do now. I'm an outsourced CFO. I make anywhere from 10 to 12 TV movies a year, some episodic. Once in a while we consult on, and once in a while my clients will pick up some independent features that we work on, but it's really finance. And I don't have a background in it. And I took a couple of classes at one point in accounting, and I just really liked it. And I got good at it. And I think that's something we need to tell people when you're young, in your 20s. Whatever you're good at, figure it out and lay into it. I always used to say, I'm the guy with the most obvious creative idea in the room. You don't want me to be a creative, or if you do, I'm going to make really subpar content. But I'm really good at putting together people and money and figuring out how to move it around and do a budget. My budgets in some cases came in within $1,000 on a $2 or $3 million project. Wow. Within $1,000 what my estimate was. Wow. Actually, impressive. that was a $9 million project. So either way, I was always able to budget accurately and budget without, overspending, that kind of thing, and deliver projects for what the producer had for it. So I figured that out when I was young. I was 26. I just loved doing budgets for movies, and I would do them a couple times for producers for free. I would do schedules for free. And then not only would I do them, I would then compare my work against what actually happened to see how correct or incorrect I was all across that budget or all across the schedule. So learn what you're good at early and what you're good at young, and lay into it and just do it over and over and over and become an exceptional expert at that thing.
Yeah, that's such amazing advice. It frustrates me. I actually used to be a teacher for about 6 years, and
that's cool.
I was teaching middle school, and it drives me nuts because nobody cares about what the kids are actually interested in, what they're good at. Like you're saying, like they're just like, no, learn all this basic curriculum stuff and make sure that you know all your formulas and all the stupid stuff that you're never going to use. I have an 11-year-old daughter as well, and she texted me the other day. We were talking about her math class. She had gotten a bad grade on a test. She's like, seriously, am I going to use this when I get older?
Fractions, right?
Yeah.
Fucking fractions.
It's so stupid. And I said, unless you're going to build something where you
you won't use centimeters and millimeters. It's more accurate.
Yeah. And so like, I try to tell her, no, you just get by the best you can, learn it as good as you can. But
you mean I'm not the only parent in America having that conversation with their 11-year-old?
Well, the education system's so broken, and I refuse to just allow my kids to go through it and, be just treated stupid like they have treated everybody else in America for the last however many years. This has been our endemic that's going through our country. Like, this is ridiculous.
And if you're a little bit bright, you get left behind.
Absolutely. And
because they're teaching to the stupid all the time.
Yeah. It's the lowest common denominator. They have to figure out what kids they can just push through. And then right above that level of pushing through, there's the level they're going to teach at. And then all the smart kids, like you said, they're just bored, twiddling their thumbs. Most of them are accused of being ADHD or, because they're not being challenged.
That was me in the 4th grade. I can remember the day. I remember what I was wearing. I remember the weather. I remember what class I was in. I was like, Chumash Indians again. I got this. We did it in 3rd. We did it in 2nd. I'm done. If this is Tool, I'm out. And that was it. I pulled the shade down. And I didn't pay attention until I went to college.
So did that impact your grades, or were you smart
100%.
enough to get by? Okay.
I used to drive my parents crazy. In the classes I was bored by, I would get D's. And by the way, I would get F's at the quarter. And then when the semester came, I would turn them into D's. But when my report card came, I would take the F and I would take it with a pencil because it was that carbon print through. I would turn the F because I could hold it up to the light. I could see it. I would turn the F into a B. And the grade would come in on the semester. My mom would be like, how you had a B? How'd you get a D? And I'm like, I went from a fucking F to a D. What are you talking about? That was in my head, right?
Yep.
So anyway, it suffered. But then architecture and graphics and wood shop and business class, A's, straight A's. My parents couldn't figure. They were like, why are you failing or getting D's here and A's there? I'm like, oh, I was bored.
Yeah. And you would think that would be a red flag for people in the education system, because it's not just you, it's across the board. That's happening with so many people. Obviously you have your overachievers that are just making straight A's on everything, but the normal person is going to apply themselves to what they're interested in. And I like this new kind of mindset that's coming out lately, where it's more education based around the children's interests. One of my friends is experimenting with that. And like, he takes his kids on nature walks, and then they explore like different types of mushrooms, and they learn about it. Just they find stuff in the woods and you learn about it organically versus reading a textbook and getting that knowledge through there, because it just doesn't work anymore, especially not in this day and age where everybody's so technologically driven, and just sitting down and reading a book is very rare for a lot of kids these days.
It's true. And I like to say that the education system, at least in Southern California and Los Angeles, is teaching to the 1950s space program. That was a half century ago. Come on. Oh, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to get it together.
Yeah.
And let's not even start about history, but let's.
The classics. The trolley problem, right? Enough
ranting about how messed up our school system is, because I could talk about that all day. Speaking of books, you wrote 2 books. You've written How to Make It in Hollywood, which is inspiring filmmakers through the black box that is building a durable network in film and TV production. Can you talk a little bit about the black box and how to build a durable network, of course, without giving too much of your book away?
Well, so the black box is what everybody sees as actor, and director. And once in a while, they'll know who the writers are, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea that there's 250,000 other jobs that do all the back end stuff, the post-production, the grip, electric, camera, set deck, all of that. And producers, right? So what most people don't know is this is an industry, and it's extremely difficult to get connected to. It's super closed. And it's all a referral business. So you have to know somebody. And the only way you're going to know someone is by making a connection. You do that by doing informationals. You get the informational interviews by being relevant to the person you're talking to for the career choice that you want long-term. So you first got to decide what it is that you want to do. Then you got to decide what vertical you want to work in. If you want to work in dramatic television, single camera, 1 hour, you're not going to go to Endemol because they make reality television, America's Got Talent, that kind of stuff. I don't know if they produce that particular show, but that kind of show, right?
Right.
So anyway, Endemol isn't the place where you're going to go to do drama. So you have to know who the players are. You have to understand the system. Everybody knows Sony Pictures, Warner Brothers, Paramount Pictures, Disney, all of that, right? Well, underneath those structures, there are production companies, and there are anywhere from 2 or 3 dozen of them to 2 or 3 of them from within the financing structure that is the studios and the distributors. So you have to understand who those people are, because you're never going to sell to Disney, you're never going to sell to Paramount, but you can sell to the creative assistant or the development executive at the production companies that have overhead deals with the studios. So understanding the structure, understanding who to talk to. Are you going to get to Joss Whedon if that's what you want to do? No. Are you going to get to his assistant? Maybe. Are you going to get to the staff writer on one of his shows that you found through IMDb, researching what he works on, what you love, and then figuring out who that person is and what other shows they've worked on? Yes. That's the person you're going to go find out. If you want to be a writer, go talk to that person. Try to make a connection. Hi, my name's Tim. I'm an aspiring writer. I'm currently a student. I'm an aspiring writer. I'm looking for work as a PA. I'd love to find out how you got to where you are as a staff writer on XYZ show that I admire greatly. It's that simple. It's 4 or 5 sentences. It's 2 paragraphs without asking for something. That's another key thing. In your informational interview, do not ask for a job. Don't ask to read your script, watch your YouTube content, or come to your showcase. Just don't do it. They'll ghost on you. You have to just be open to the idea that I'm looking for this job. I'm out looking. If you know anybody, feel free to throw my resume around. And then you email them a resume. And on top of that, you mail them. You get their physical snail mail address, and you mail them a handwritten note that says, "Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it." No one does it, especially anybody under the age of 35 or 40. They don't even know what a stamp is or where to go buy one. Learn where the stamps get bought. And if you already know that, fantastic. Use it to your advantage, because 95% of people don't write hand notes and they don't mail them to people. They fire off an email because it's fast and cheap and easy.
Yeah.
Transcend fast and cheap and easy and make yourself different from the rest of the chumps who are lining up or outside the door, because there are thousands of them. And that's why this industry is so hard to get connected to and get into.
That's such great advice, because my wife is an actress as well. We live here in Atlanta. And so, we're part of the Atlanta acting scene. She was in LA for a long time and did acting out there, made a pretty decent name for herself over the years. And
that's a tough grind, man.
It's a really tough grind. And
I want to add one thing to acting before you move on. I want to hear this story about your wife, but understand something. If you're an actor trying to make this transition, an actor's job is to audition. Just because you haven't had paid work doesn't mean you don't have a job as an actor. It just means you haven't been paid for it yet. Right. Your job is to audition and network and get to know people. So when you say to people, "I'm an actor, I'm auditioning," stop it. You're an actor. You're doing a job. Your job is to audition. Have confidence in what you're doing. Even if you're a bartender, even if you're waiting tables or whatever you do to make a living, because everybody's got to do it in this town, you shouldn't be afraid or ashamed of the fact that you are an auditioning actor. That's a job.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that you said that too, because we've talked about that before, where people will downplay their own ability, or like you're saying, they'll I guess I'm an actor because I'm
Yeah.
trying, like they'll downplay it so much and not have confidence in who they are. And so one thing we're really into, and I'll get back to the story about my wife in a moment, but one thing we're really into is manifesting the things in our lives. So we will speak out the things that we want as if they are already come to pass. And it's been working wonders for us in our lives because it puts that right mindset into your head when you say, I'm an actor, I have roles, even if you don't have roles, like, or I'm going to be booked on all these roles. Like, you have to speak that every single day and convince yourself before you could ever convince somebody else.
Yeah. And a lot of coaches, I don't do this. It's not my thing, but when I say I don't teach this, I teach the mechanics of how to get connected to the industry. Right. But a lot of people in the creative space do a gratitude journal, and they do I can't think of the phrase, but it's essentially a paragraph or two of what you are and what you want. And maybe it's a page, and you read it every single day when you get out of bed. And that thing is, I am a auditioning actor looking for a role as blah, blah, blah. Right. And you just keep, and I want to work with producers who have distribution, who are connected to the studio system and have money to pay their actors a living wage, and who pay SAG or AFTRA scale, that kind of thing. That's super important. And you write it down, you refine it to what you want. There's places to go find it, and there's teachers who can teach it, but you read it every day and you say it out loud to yourself. And as it evolves, it changes. And it absolutely has value. I don't care who you are. Working as an actor, that's hard, man. It's hard to hear no every day. I never did that. I was never the guy who heard a no every day because I don't want it. I don't want to hear no. Yeah.
It's really tough. And
it is.
And what I was getting at earlier was, you would believe people outside of this industry might not believe how many messages she gets every week. And she's not been like a really active actor in the last couple of years. I mean, we've done some small roles. She's done some things. But she gets message after message after message. Hey, my friend, my son, I want to get into acting. What should I do? And that's like the first message she gets from any of these people. It's like, no, hi, how are you? Not, any kind of small talk at all. It's just straight to the chase. Tell me how to do what you're doing. And people don't realize there's years and years and years of grinding that's gone into building these careers. And you can't just ask somebody for a 2-minute synopsis of where they got to where they are without any kind of prior relationship. Like, you got to really invest in speaking to a person before you give the ask, because otherwise you're just like every other noisy person out there, just trying to get theirs and not really trying. You're just looking for the easy way out by asking somebody who's done all the hard work. Yeah. And to your point, networking is super important. And it doesn't have to feel sleazy. It doesn't have to feel soulless. Yeah. You're making friends with people, and make a list of those friends and call them every month or every couple weeks and just check in, just to talk. Like, hey, here's what are you doing? Yeah. What's going on? I'm doing this, whatever you're doing. And then at the end of the conversation, you go, hey man, I'm looking for work. If you know anybody who's looking for whatever, set decorator or a line producer or a production accountant, whatever your thing is, you don't have to be working the angle all the time. Just make friends. Yeah. It reminds me of people, years ago when I was in my early 20s, I did a pyramid scheme style business. It was at that point it was Quickstar, but it was Amway Global. I got involved in, and they teach you to mark every single person you meet as a potential client, and that mindset. It's funny you're using the word mark. Yeah. That mindset is just so sleazy. Like you said, like you don't have any real relationships with people, because once they've declined you as wanting to work with you, it's like, okay, on to the next person. I'm done with you. I don't need you in my life anymore. And so all these relationships are not real at all. Yeah, it's true. And it's just about how you operate. That's all. You don't have to be that person. You get to choose what you want to be and how you want to operate. And that's a decision. Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the financing aspect of film and TV, because this is something, I've been on set a couple times doing some small background roles, just, for fun and whatnot. We were just on set with a Chris Evans movie, which was super cool. And like you said, there are hundreds of people on those sets doing all the things. And now, even especially since COVID, it's gone even crazier because you have the people doing the COVID regulations and the ones giving out the masks and the tests, and people have to be paid for getting COVID tests. My wife was doing some scenes on The Walking Dead, and because it was all the way down in Sonoya, she was making like as much as a day's worth of work acting just to drive down there and do a COVID test, which I don't understand where all this money in the industry is coming from, honestly, and the effect that it's having on production. So can you enlighten us? It adds
money.
Yeah. Can you enlighten us a little bit on, the struggle that's caused and what that kind of looks like?
Well, the simple answer is there's a whole COVID protocol and a team who does that testing for everybody. Mm-hmm. And those tests are $100 to $150 per test. There are people who are making whatever, $1,000 to $2,000 a week, administering those tests and wrangling them and sending them where they belong. Mm-hmm. And a $200,000 picture, Canadian, $3 million Canadian dollars, excuse me, I should be clear. $3 million Canadian dollar budget adds easily 200 to 250,000 Canadian dollars in cost to that budget. So we're talking about a number that's close to 10% of an overall budget. And it's just a requirement. So what's happened? To some extent, licenses from distributors have come up. So it's being paid for largely by the distributors, by the studios. That's where the excess money is coming from. Eventually, that's going to stop. When it becomes endemic, as it seems to have, and people aren't being hospitalized and the fear starts to abate. And my guess is that's 10 months, maybe a year and a half. I don't know, maybe less. The studios will say, all right, we're done. Enough. Yeah. 10% of budget is enough. So, and by the way, this is $3 million features on $200 million features. It's probably close to the same thing. It probably isn't a 10% number, but it's going to be millions of dollars. So you're talking about thousands of people working or 1,000 people working on those kinds of crews. So I think it'll come to an end sometime pretty soon. And if you're in the COVID space and that's how you make your living, you want to find another way to make a living. It's probably not going to be around for very much longer.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. And it's just coming out of the bottom line. It's an inflationary cost related to the making of movies in the COVID era. Is that going to stay? No. Is inflation going to stay? It'll get moved from this area into other areas of filmmaking.
Yeah. It's just wild to me. And the fact that you have to sit, like your job is to sit down and look at all those numbers and figure out, okay, we've got this many actors and this many staff and all these people have to be COVID tested. And that just sounds like a nightmare to me. Is it like just incredibly difficult?
No,
or is it more like a puzzle to you?
It's more like a puzzle. It's just more pieces. And whenever you have a piece that requires bodies, you just apply bodies to it, whether it's 3 people, 5 people. It's really just a simple calculation of how many people can we push through a line in an hour and how many people do we have to test? If I can push 10 people through a line with one person and I got to test 100 people, I'm using round numbers because it's simple, and I got to test 100 people, I got to have 10 people sitting there taking tests for 2 hours in the morning every day or at the end of the night, whatever it is. It's just applying a formula to the average so that you can get on the other end a number that can be put on that particular cost of that line item. And it's like anything else in a budget. It all gets broken down. You sit down. The first thing you do when you get a screenplay and you're trying to figure out how to make it, you read it. And you go one pass, you just read it because it's the last time you're going to read it for joy. The next time you read it and the 100th time you read it, it's not fun anymore. It's fucking work. Yeah. So you sit down on the second time and you circle all the actors in red and you circle all the props in blue and you underline all the visual effects in black line and so on. You go through the entire draft and you break it down. Each scene has number of people. There's a core amount you have to have: grip, electric camera, set deck, transportation, whatever that is, depending on whether you're on location or not. Each department has a line item for each one of those bodies. And you just have systems where you estimate what the costs are. And everybody does it the same way, whether you do it at Sony or Universal or Warner Brothers or wherever, whether it's in television or feature. The difference between television and feature is in TV, you shoot 9 pages a day in average. In features, you shoot 1 page a day. Yeah. It's just a different way of working, a different way of thinking, but it's all pretty much the same. Honestly, it really hasn't changed in probably 80 years. The technology has, but the systems for how you make movies hasn't changed.
That's super interesting to me. Like I'm learning so much right now, and I'm just soaking it all in. So thank you for bringing this to us, because it really is opening my eyes on a lot of things. Because I've always wondered about these behind the scenes things. As somebody who's got the chance to work in this, you see a lot of things, and you never understand like what's the process to do all of that. And so hearing you talk about going through the script and marking each thing and then doing a calculation, I guess you do need fractions sometimes.
But it's not a fraction, it's proportions.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was in high school, when I used to do fractions, I'd convert it to a decimal and then convert it back to a fraction on my answer. I just memorized the quarter, the eighth, the half tables of what those equaled in a decimal, and then converted it back.
Yeah. Well, it's been super educational so far, but you've actually started a new business, F3 Full Force Financial, which is such a cool name, by the way.
Thanks.
And it's revolutionizing the accounting process. You deliver a done-for-you suite of the back-end financial processing and forecasting for content creators. So how is the business going, and what's it like juggling the day-to-day operations along with film production and everything else that you're doing?
Well, honestly, it's not that dissimilar to what I've been doing for the past 13 years, which is working as a CFO. So what Full Force Financial is it's just totally inside baseball, but I'll go into it because you asked, and it's interesting to me. So it must be interesting to everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is an entire industry of payroll services that you probably received a paycheck from: cast and crew, entertainment partners, Green Slate, media services. Those are the big ones.
Yep.
Which I think two of them merged recently, but nonetheless, those are the big ones. They process payroll, and it's a Byzantine, terrible system. Their architecture is awful. It's all closed architecture. You don't own your data. You license their software, and they process payroll for you. And the one thing we do on that side of the business is we do a cost report, and that is very particular to our industry. So what I did was I built software that sits in between. I built two pieces of software. Number one, I built a piece of software that does the cost reporting element. That's the one thing no one else in the world does. It's particular to entertainment, and it's a little peculiar. So we built software to do that. It took us about a year to get it right. And then I built another piece of software that sits in the middle of the accounts payable piece, the accounting part, the payroll, using a vanilla accounting and payroll package, whether it's ADP, Paychex, whatever, in payroll, and using QuickBooks, Xero, or NetSuite, or Oracle, or whatever accounting package you're on, so that those three things talk. So what happens is when someone gets hired, it triggers an event that goes to the payroll, that triggers an event that goes to collecting documents for legal, and all the rest of it. So what we do is we are essentially selling software to producers that says, hey, if you want to get outside of this expensive, dishonest because they're charging, they say they charge 1.5 to 1.8% of aggregate spend, of aggregate gross payroll. That's their fee. But the truth is they collect it from other places by lying and cheating. They tell you their state unemployment rate is 6.2%, but it really is 3.5 or 4%. So they keep the 3% difference, right? Up to the cutoff, whatever it is. It's all kinds of places they do that, and they cheat and they take people's money. I think it's dishonest, and I want it to end. So I developed and built software to be able to work outside of that system and get everything you get there in an accounting package, a payroll package, and a cost reporting package. That's the things we do in finance. That's how we track movie spending. The going specific into the cost report. What we do in entertainment, nobody else in any other business does. Most companies think in terms of quarters, months, maybe never weeks. We think in terms of days when we're shooting. So at the end of a day, the next morning by noon, the production accountant will be able to, with some amount of certainty, be able to tell the studio how much money they're over or under budget on labor and spend every single day for the previous day. Nobody else does that.
Yeah, but that's revolutionizing the industry.
To some extent, cost reports have been around forever. But what I did was I took it out of this 25 or 30-year-old shitty software that the payroll services offer and saddle you with. And you do it now outside of that system in an architecture where it's open and you get to work in whatever form you want to work.
Yeah, so it's kind of breaking the monopoly that they've had on this system for years by introducing something that takes the power away from the big players that are screwing the little guys.
It's not kind of, it is. That's exactly what it's doing.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of a rebellious person when it comes to taking down the power from the big people and giving it to the little ones. Like that's my heart right there.
Well, it was born a couple of years, probably 5 years by now, out of one of the payroll services who I've worked with for 25 years, telling me that the world was changing and this is how it's changing. And if you don't adapt, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but if you don't adapt, then we don't want to work with you. And this is a client of mine who's probably pushed close to $150 million worth of payroll through that company.
Man.
And over the course of about 10 or 11 years. And they said, this is changing. And if you don't like it, then tough shit. You got to put up with it. And I went, oh, okay. Fuck you. I'll figure out how to work around you. And that's what I did.
Nice. And that's what it's about. That's where ingenuity comes from. That's where advancements come from. It's people being put in a spot where it's like, if you don't do this, you can't do that. And then people like you who don't just cave to their expectations, say, no, I think I've got a better way. And you come up with something, and now it's changing the industry. I assume it's doing really well. It's going good. I'm getting adoption from producers who are like, oh my, well, that's interesting. Wait a minute. We've done it this way for all these years. How do you do this? And then it's pushing a boulder up a hill every day. I got to be honest. It's retraining a way of thinking. And these are really complex. What we do in entertainment, in physical production, everything else is a little bit different, but in physical production, what we do is we spend money at scale and at speed like no other industry, except maybe construction. We have a lot of labor, a lot of bitsy little transactions, and a lot of materials that we have to bring together and then pay out and then track all those costs and report it back to the studio so the studio knows how much money we're spending on a daily basis. That's essentially what we do. So there aren't really any other industries that work the way we do. There's a few, but not many. So building systems outside of the monopolies, it's really an oligopoly. There's probably a half dozen of them that exist out there, and there's 3 or 4 that are dominant. So, and they have a lot of control, and I don't like the way they treat us, the people who do this for a living. Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm sure the producers that are actually like taking your advice and going with this are saving a ton of money and real happy about it. That's the crazy thing. They can literally save, I say it's about 6 or 7% of your total aggregate payroll spend. So if you're spending $1 million, you're talking about real money. You're talking about 60, 70 grand. Yeah. And there aren't many movies made for $1 million. Most movies are made for a lot more. Yeah. And then all that money can go back into production, making better movies, which I have noticed that the production level on a lot of stuff has gone down quite a bit since COVID. I feel like where do you think the 10% came from? Yeah. And it's because they're funneling all that money into all this stupid stuff. And so they're making cuts where the cuts really don't need to be made in the actual production of the movie. Yeah. There's some of that. I mean, I would say at this point, you could probably describe some of the decisions as stupid. A year and a half ago, when we didn't really know who was vulnerable and who was getting really sick and dying, that was I don't think it was stupid. I think it was just prudent. Yeah. Now I think we're dealing with fear now. We're not dealing with rational scientific decision-making about people aren't really dying from COVID anymore. It's become a lot less lethal for now. It may change, who knows? But as we're talking right now in the spring of 2022, it doesn't seem to be having a big effect in terms of making people sick and dying. Yeah, I don't like to get political, but I'm the kind of person that I believe that COVID, it was a problem. We needed to take it seriously. Of course, we took it seriously. We've done the things, but like this weekend, my wife and I were at MomoCon here in Atlanta. It's a big like Comic-Con style festival. Okay. And they're still making everybody wear masks. Yeah. I've been shot twice. I've been boosted. I've done everything they've asked me to do, yet they're still requiring all these precautions. And it's funny how like they're going to continue to like just keep that power. And you got people walking around with signs saying, I'll kick you out if you don't pull that mask up. And it's like, it's mind boggling how such little power can go to people's heads in such a big way.
Well, I've said for a while, if COVID didn't happen during an election year, it wouldn't be quite such a hot button issue.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
So how has being a creative person helped your business decisions? Do you use your creativity to, like, with this company? Is that something that you were able to use your creativity to kind of further?
Well, yeah. I mean, creative has such a connotation about, writing books, writing screenplays, directing, acting, fine arts, dancing, those kinds of things, right? But scientists are extremely creative. They come up with an idea to build a test to test COVID in a matter of weeks, right? Never mind the vaccines, just the testing protocols that have been created and been through the regulatory process. The man or woman who comes up with a way of putting together a physical a system of gears, a transmission in a car, whatever it is, or that's the physical part of it, even the technological part of it. Somebody comes up with an idea. So there is creativity in a lot of different parts. And there's an amazing amount of creativity, and people don't get this, but there's an amazing amount of creativity in the money. Yeah. And finding the money, and then how do you spend it, and how do you allocate it so that the creatives can do what they want, right? There's never an infinite amount of money unless you're Steven Spielberg or you're James Cameron or J.J. Abrams. And even then, it's not infinite. There is a limit to which people will spend. Or will spend on your behalf. So you have to be creative in how you pull that money together and how you use it. And I think the most creative decisions I've ever seen happen came because of some kind of financial or logistics constraint. And so have I been creative? Yes, I'm always forced to be creative. And I happen to be the person who is always thinking, like, how can we do this different? How can we do it better? Is there technology we can apply to it? The difference between me and the people who don't do what I do, in other words, create technology to enable people to work around the system and make their lives a little easier, is when I get the idea, I write it down. I write it down in a journal, no matter how stupid it is, and no matter how thin or ridiculous it might be, or small market it is, I write it down. I don't always act on all of them, but some of them are like, oh, this is actually a really good idea. And that goes for creatives too. You have people who write for a living. If they get an idea, you write it down. Don't forget it. Otherwise, it just comes. I don't know where these thoughts come from. Yep. I don't know who puts them there. If a person or something puts them there, it's just your subconscious grinding all the time. I have when I'm really in a place where I'm trying to solve a problem, whether it's how to make a movie or a math problem I'm working on when writing code, or how to make code work my way because it doesn't do it, I have a really hard time sleeping. And I think that's because my subconscious is just grinding on it. And I can't tell you how many times I went to bed not knowing how to do something, and I woke up with a fully fleshed out idea about how to do it. Yeah. It's amazing what your subconscious can accomplish when you let it rest a little bit. Same things would happen to me with music. I would, when I was in college, I was a cellist. And I majored in cello. And so I would be struggling with a particular passage, and I'd be practicing it. I just reminded of a joke about violas, which I'll tell when you're finished, but go ahead and tell. There's so many good viola jokes, but I'm very excited to hear. How do you prevent your violin from being stolen? Put in a viola case. Yeah. That's so true. That's so great. I love it. Anyway, orchestral geeks, right? Yes. Oh yeah. I was an orchestra teacher in middle school. So right. I know. Anyway, you played the cello. Yeah. So I would be practicing these passages for hours and hours. Like you were saying, 6-7 hours a day, practicing, just grinding away. And my teacher told me, I was like, I can't get this passage. She's like, first walk away from it. Yeah. Stop. Think about it differently. She said, try playing it in different rhythms that aren't written. Try playing it backwards. I was just going to say that was advice told to me by a teacher when I was in college. Play backward. We have to trick our minds into stop looking at the actual problem that you're having and take it from a completely different angle and look at it. And then once you do that, you can see it more clearly. And then the problem can find its own solution. Like you were saying, like in the middle of the night, your subconscious just works it out because you stopped like
thinking about it constantly in that moment and stressing about it, because you get so wrapped up in that thing that you forget everything else, and you just become consumed with it, and you can't think clearly enough to actually fix the problem.
And I think musicians learn this at a young age, because we all start playing usually around the 4th grade, sometimes a little earlier, right?
Right.
So what you learn when you're practicing, or you're learning a new technique or a new rudiment or a new scale or whatever you're learning, you practice, you don't get it, you practice, you don't get it. And then one day it just happens and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, that just happened. I didn't even try.
Yeah.
And that's a thing you learn that musicians, that a lot of people who don't play never get. They don't get that you just gotta let it lie sometimes. And it just comes one day. And you see the progress. You see failure, success, failure, success. But you take 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 forward, 2 back. But at the end of the day, you've taken 10 steps, but you're still forward more than you're backward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I love it. And that's 100%. You're just like preaching on what this podcast is all about. People get so wrapped up in the failure that they're like, I'm never going to reach the success. And they forget that there are little successes along the way to every major success. You know, you don't just go from, hey, I'd like to be in the movie industry, to being a producer of a movie. Like, you don't just go from one to the other. There's a million little things you have to do between those two. And there's a lot of failure along the way, but you have to recognize when there are successes and celebrate those successes and enjoy the time where you're actually making progress, or else you'll just get bogged down by all the things that are 10 steps back. And instead of just keep saying, but I am moving forward little by little. And so that's
and also something that caught my attention about your podcast, and the name of it and the description of it, which is success, finding your success. What is success? I was 35 years old. I was running Oprah Winfrey's film unit, making 3 or 4 movies a year, both features and television. I was flying back from Chicago in Oprah Winfrey's G5, with her sitting across from me. And 15 days earlier, I was complaining about the fact that I had to go to Chicago in the middle of winter. This was in December. And my friend is like, are you fucking kidding me? People give their eye teeth to go to lunch with Oprah Winfrey. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to Chicago. Fuck that. Anyway, I'm flying back. And I remember, and I'm not telling the story as bragging, I'm telling it as an illustration of what success is.
Right.
I was 35 years old, and I'd been doing the job for 5 years. We were about to go into what became the last movie I made for that company, which was a movie called Amy and Isabel. And I was flying home, and I was thinking to myself, I don't want the next job. I don't want to be the studio executive that I was being groomed to make the transition from an independent producer into a studio job. And I saw that life, and I saw those people. And for me, there was a disconnect between their perception that the outside world had of them. There was a publicity that was created, a myth that was created around this person. But then when I worked with those people, the myth didn't match the reality. They were still interesting people. They were good at their job. I couldn't figure out how to make a life out of living in a duplicitous world where the world thought I was this, but I was really that. Right.
Yeah.
So I walked away. I was 35 years old. I made one more movie with them, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to go do something else. And so for about 5 years, I floundered because I didn't have that. I got that goal I wanted when I was 30. I did it for 5 or 6 years. And then I was kind of just adrift in the wind for 5, 6 years. And then I landed on this CFO thing. And I decided, and I got married. I was line producing through that period of time. I got married, and we were just about to have a kid. And I was like, do I really want to be the guy who's on the road all the time? Out in the world. I had lived all over the world at that point. I'd spent 17 years on the road, living in Europe and in Japan and all over the United States and Canada. And I was done. I didn't want that life. So it's a long way to say what I defined as success as a 25-year-old, and then as a 35-year-old, and then as a 45-year-old, they changed every single time. And the success that I was striving for was success I created for myself, that I decided what success was, not the people around me, not the Bentley, not the big house, not the expensive flying around in Oprah's G5. None of that shit. I wanted none of it. I wanted a simple life. And I'm the one who decided what and defined what success was. And that's what I chased. And I always chased my version of success, not the outside. And that's why, I live like a college student in a 900 square foot 2-bedroom apartment with my 11-year-old 50% of the time. That's fine. That's what I want. I want it simple. Not everybody does. I'm not saying you got to have that, but define what success is for yourself and chase that, not what everybody else thinks success is.
That's so great. And speaking of which, this is my favorite part of the podcast. We have to celebrate what your most recent success is, big or small. We always like to, celebrate that, to stop and take a minute and to recognize the things that are going right. So what's a success that you would like to celebrate right here on the podcast?
Well, one of the things you brought up was Full Force Financial and the software we developed there. It took me it took all together 8 years, but it took us about 2.5 years to really get it into a form at the beginning of the year. And that has been the biggest success I've gone through in the past couple of years. And it's been really fun and really exciting and mentally challenging, learning how tech works and all of that. It's been a lot of fun. And applying it to the movie industry, in particular film production, has been so rewarding. And the people we work with are amazing.
That's so awesome. And we want to celebrate with you as well. Me and my wife, who's, not here, obviously, and all of our fans, we celebrate the fact that you started that, and it's going to change the world of financing when it comes to movies and film production. It's just going to be so great for you. And we can't wait to see what that does there. Yeah. Why don't you real quick tell our listeners where they could find you, connect with you, see what you're doing, keep up with what you're up to?
Yeah. The best place to get me is on my website. It's timtortora.com, and last name is spelled Tortora. If you're interested in the book, which is about how to get connected in Hollywood, the title is, as you said before, How to Make It in Hollywood. The best place to get that is career.timtortora.com. And on my website, there's all kinds of links to the social, and there's a form you can fill out and ask any question you want on the bottom of the form, and feel free to fill it out. It gets to me or my assistant.
Yeah. So make sure that you don't just come straight up and ask Tim to
will you read my screenplay?
To read your play or to get you a role, or, whatever it is that your ask might be. Try to develop a little relationship there before you do that.
And understand what whoever you're talking to does in the business. Yeah. I can't help you with creative. I'm not good at it. I don't do that. I haven't done it since I left Harpo Films, which was in 2001 or 2. It's been a long time. I'm a finance guy. I can help you with finance, not financing your own movies, but nonetheless, you understand the person you're writing to. That's my point.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, if you had one last piece of advice, and you've given so much advice for anyone that's an aspiring finance person in the film area, what would you tell them?
2 things. One, we are headed for a rough patch in this business. We have been up and to the right since 2009. That's a long time to be up and to the right. Yeah. So that's going to change. Budgets are going to come down. Compression is going to happen. It's coming. And there's going to be a lot of noise about the crash and the negative and terrible, and the world is coming to an end, and we're going to be a world war and nuclear, right? Blah, blah, blah. Those people in the media, their job is to sell you gloom and doom. Remember, it's not always gloom and doom. Read what you can about the contemporaneous happenings of people that happened during the Depression. You will be amazed at how many people survived and thrived during that period, even though we hear about terrible things. But this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're about to enter a sprint for the next 18 to 24 months. It's probably going to suck. But remember, on the other side of it is something big, and it is going to come. You just have to get through this piece now.
So just hang on tight and ride the wave.
And it's all negative propaganda. Don't buy into it. It's information. You got to have it. Don't ignore it.
Yep.
But remember, it's just propaganda to sell you newspapers or advertising. That's what it's doing.
Well, Tim, this has been absolutely amazing. Like I've said already, I've learned so much, and really, truly appreciate your time and speaking to our audience and just giving your wisdom that you've learned over the last, I guess 20 something years or more.
37.
37. Wow. Yeah. I was trying to be generous for you.
I actually had someone tell me the other day that I didn't look like I was 56, but I am indeed.
Well, you're pulling it off. No
surgery yet.
Good job. Good job. Anyway. Well, I do appreciate your time, and we'll definitely have to catch up with you in the future and see how all this is going for you and have you back eventually. So thanks, you
Jesse.
again.
I really appreciate it.
All right.
Later.
Bye. That was so cool to just be able to hear somebody in the industry talk about all the things that they've learned and they've seen, and just share wisdom and knowledge that is actually beneficial to people that are in the industry wanting to pursue it. There's so many practical things that he just said. I hope people that were hearing it were taking notes and listening closely. If not, I recommend you go back and listen again, take some notes, and try some of the methods that he's talked about today, because there's a lot of things that he mentioned, like following up with people, using snail mail, little tricks that you can do that will actually get people's attention and make you stand out above the crowd. This has been so great. I hate that Melissa wasn't here today, and she hates that she couldn't be on this interview as well. But it's such a crazy time in life right now. We've got a lot going on, a lot of really exciting things, and we can't wait to share all that with you extremely soon. Make sure you go over to Creative Global, our Patreon at patreon.com/Creative Global, and get registered there. We're putting out bonus content all the time for you guys, having different interviews that we're doing that are a little bit more private or a little bit like different format. So check that out. Make sure that you're liking our social medias on Facebook and Instagram at Reimagine Success Pod everywhere. So Reimagine Success Pod on Facebook, Instagram. Hit us up there. Make sure you share this with all your friends. Word of mouth truly is the best way to spread information about things. All the podcasts I listen to, I found out from word of mouth from other people. So do tell your friends and family to check out this podcast if you've enjoyed it. Thank you again for listening. And with that, this has been a Creative Global podcasting production.
Did you get motivated? Do you feel inspired?
Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses anymore, and don't forget to celebrate your successes every single day. Thank you for taking this journey with us.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Reimagine Success Pod. Email us at reimaginesuccesspod@gmail.com and let us know what your successes are. Head over to patreon.com/Creative Global for bonus and behind-the-scenes content.
New episodes every Thursday at reimaginesuccesspod.com or your favorite podcast streaming platform.
So let's change our mindsets and reimagine success.